Hi everyone, welcome to the Radiant Lawcast. My name is Sena, and joining me today for the very first time is my brilliant colleague, Kendra Pillay. How are you doing, Kendra?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Sena.
You're live and kicking.
Yeah, live and kicking.
You are one of the first guests in the Lawcast. Usually it's me and Alex, but like I said, we're doing things differently this time around, and you guys will be seeing more of Kendra. She's going to be heavily involved. And yeah, let's get right to it. What I want to chat to you today about is, kind of cultivating a culture in a young law firm, because I know you've been heavily involved in that. But before we get to all the fun stuff, let's chat about your legal journey so far. Your legal career before you got to Radiant, how did you get here, stage of your career, and what's been your experience working at a firm like ours?
So I did the traditional path. I studied at LLB. I went to law school. I did my articles. I did my articles at a commercial and insolvency firm. So not a lot of like labor or family law experience, but a lot of contracting, a lot of insolvency. I would say my experience in litigation wasn't too good.
No one's experience in litigation is.
I think that's the general articles experience.
Yeah.
But it kind of like pushed me towards looking for an alternative, like creative legal space. And I think I really found that in Radiant. I also did my articles during COVID, so had that extra layer of masks and queues and social distancing, and it was not ideal.
Hectic. Yeah. So then after you're done with articles, you're done with the traditional, the gowns and the heels and all of that, then you join up with Radiant. Mm-hmm. Obviously you joined during the pandemic, so a lot of it was very remote.
Yeah.
So you immediately got heavily involved in the social stuff in the firm. So there's a social committee. Tell me a bit about that and what the social committee at Radiant is all about.
So I came in obviously quite late in the game, but there was an already formed social committee, and it was a big group of people.
Yeah, I remember I was part of it.
Exactly, it was a huge fun group of people, and everybody had diverse suggestions of activities and restaurants and places to go. I think at the beginning of this year we tried to iterate on what we had last year. I think it was a bit difficult having so many people and having people make decisive decisions on what we do and how things happen.
So before we even go further, let's just talk about the importance of that, right? So I spoke in the previous episode with Alex about how the firm doubled in size, literally in a year. And one of the challenges was, you're trying to integrate everyone and make people feel like part of a team and not just, islands working for one company, but we're all not connected at all, right? Because the difficulty when you're working during COVID is you don't come to an office where you meet. There's no tea, coffee break where we could all socialize and mingle. And I think that's where the importance of the necessity of a social committee came from. You mentioned that when we started, you were trying to bring different events and restaurants, things we can do just to maintain camaraderie. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Just expand a bit on that and what was the intention behind trying to get us to do all the stuff.
I mean, as you said, we're a remote first environment at Radiant, so we have to put in a little bit more effort to keep people connected, and I think one of the ways we do that is the way we communicate at Radiant. Everybody's in constant communication. We're very casual in how we talk to each other. But just on the event space, we have to make a concerted effort to keep people together, or people will kind of drift into the abyss and never talk to each other. So, I mean, during COVID, I came in kind of late and you were there in the crux of it. So you might have a better idea of what it was maintaining the culture from a smaller tight-knit firm to what it grew into.
I'll admit, I'm not sure if I can actually admit to this. One of the difficulties was keeping track. When things change quickly.
Yeah, you didn't even know who I was.
I did, actually. Because obviously you got very involved in the social committee and the social stuff and organizing events. Say, guys, let's meet up at a restaurant, let's do drinks, let's do quiz night, let's do everything. The difficulty was because I don't go to the office. I work from home about 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Most of the time, 5 times a week. But one of the things that I struggled with at some point, you're like, okay, who's that?
Yeah.
You go into the next team meeting, you're like, oh, who's that? And that's where I realized, okay, it's important. Because I pride myself in knowing people's names and knowing a personal detail about someone. I can strike a conversation. I would like to think I'm that person. But it got to a point where I was like, yo, okay.
You just lost track.
Yeah, you lose track because you're also busy. You've got your own demands and you've got work, you've got contracts to review and all of that stuff. So I felt that, that changed. But immediately, once you got stuck in and then you started organizing a bunch of different things to bring us together, that helped. It helped me. And I think I can speak for most of the guys who were there before the huge transition. It was brilliant.
I really appreciate that. That is my primary goal as being part of the social committee. I think we had an event just for everyone. We had a big quiz night where I made a concerted effort to mix up the teams and kind of involve the newer people and kind of the people who have more experience and kind of integrate those teams. And that was such a fun experience.
One of the things that Alex always chats about is how he calls it a kids' crusade.
Yeah.
Because we're all very young. In terms of age, the average age of employment at the firm, I think we're still one of the youngest, if not only law firms, but I think organizations around, just in terms of the age of the staff members. Do you feel like that is an advantage or a disadvantage that we're all kind of in similar age range? We're all, except Alex, he's north of 50 now, so it's
He just turned 50, cool it.
But when we're speaking in general, we were looking at a very consistent, kind of age range. Do you feel like that makes it easy for people to interact and relate? Or would you rather have a system where we've got a group of people that are this old, a group of people that are that old, a group of people that are that old? For me, it's been amazing. I don't mean it to be age discriminate or whatever.
Yeah.
But I know in my previous experience, I worked in an organization where there were people who are much older. Obviously, when you work in a traditional law firm, that will happen. You have partners, secretaries who are old enough to be your grandparents when you're starting out.
Yeah.
Culturally, for me, it is awkward. And I'll let you in on something. In my culture, it's not a thing to refer to someone who is your elder by their first name.
Oh, of course.
You don't do that.
Of course.
They're sir, ma'am,
yeah.
Mrs. whoever, Mrs. whoever. But now you get into that environment and it's like, hey, XYZ, their name, and this person's old enough to be your grandmother. You're like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Now, it's not to say that I don't like working with people who are much older. I enjoy it. It's the best thing. But I felt like there's a lot more friendships and I build more sort of closer relationships with people that are in and around my age and people that I have common interests with. Football, music, whatever. Culturally, there's just a whole lot of similarities and that makes it easier to work. Do you find or do you share my sentiments or do you think maybe not? I'd rather have varying.
I'm probably on the similar wavelength as you. Okay. I think there are pros and cons though. I think I love how young our team is. I love that we can all share a meme and everybody's going to be in on the joke. Yeah. I love how easy it is to connect and make friends.
Yes.
And that genuinely makes it easier to get your work done.
Yeah.
If you know where someone's coming from. On the other side of it, I have learned so much from people who have more experience in our field. I from that aspect, I think that's invaluable. I think the youth element of our team makes people very moldable.
Yes.
So coming into a Radiant environment, it's easier to pick up a new concept, a new process. Yeah. I think Radiant is all about that.
Yeah. Constant change.
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe our age group picks it up easier or more easily. But yeah, I think the lessons I've learned from people who are a bit older than me, are
those are invaluable. And I do share that sentiment in the sense that sometimes you do need just an experienced hand when you're dealing with certain things for certain clients. You just need just an older head to be like, oh, back in my day, this is how I did it. That stuff is important. Because I think at times when you look across, you may not get that. You'll get something like, yo, chief, what should I do here? And like, hey, bro, I got no idea. And then you're both basically stuck clueless. So it's important to have sort of that varying and people you can lean on for different experiences.
There's also that credibility aspect. Like someone who's a bit older than us is going to have so much more credibility in what they're talking about than someone who, like a client looking at me in my 20s and they're like, what do you know about what we're doing? Where it might not be the case.
When that might not be the case. Just to wrap it up and sort of just summarize, I like to try and pinpoint what our culture is, what we're all about, because I know what my personal sort of brand is and the things that I like. If someone had to describe me in 5 words, I'm sure they'd be able to in a way. How would you describe the culture at Radiant in a few words, as well as, in terms of what the culture is, how do you cultivate that to make sure that it's maintained and people who are joining up sort of get it?
I don't know if I can say it in 5 words.
Okay,
but,
in however many words you want.
I describe us as young, energetic. I think we have such a culture of continuous improvement. I think everyone is really on board to keep iterating through processes and ideas and systems. I think that's so deeply embedded in our culture at Radiant. We're also just fun. Like,
yes,
a lot of fun. I haven't been a part of such a fun working culture ever.
Those pub quizzes are really great.
Yeah, thanks. I also, we're dynamic. I can't think of any better adjectives.
No, great. And then in terms of cultivating that, how then, what would you do? We've spoken about events, we've spoken about drinks and quizzes and all these things. Do you think that that's how you cultivate it, or are there any other gems that you have that you think, you know what, as someone who's at the forefront of this, these are the ideas that I think can get, new joiners who are joining up with us to catch on pretty quickly on some stuff?
But first I just want to discuss a challenge we haven't even touched on, is that we are across multiple continents and time zones.
There is that.
We haven't even considered that. And that has been a huge challenge in trying to figure out how to keep us connected, because our team members in Trinidad are only waking up when we're ending our day. They're only waking
up now. And then when we have our staff meetings later on in a day, they're probably still full in their
that's 10 a.m. in the morning.
We're wrapping up on a Friday and we're like, okay, cool.
And they have a full day.
This is the last thing. They still have a full day ahead. In terms of integrating them.
That's been a challenge.
Yeah.
So I find virtual events really have helped. Those have really helped cultivate the culture and keeping them connected. It is always awkward finding the right time. But keeping them involved. I think in the last team meeting, we call them stand-ups. We had a quiz where one of our Trinidad team members took us through facts about Trinidad, and that was really fun.
I only got one answer correct.
I got a few, but that was really fun. I learned so many cool things.
It was Brad and Lara, and that was the most obvious one. Because they were literally, because they also wanted to teach us about where they're from. Course. And the firm is majority South African, Cape Town, right?
Yeah.
So we're still going to have a lot of us who have similar experiences, and they're coming in with their own, and I think it's up to us to make them feel like part of it, and then that we also can extend sort of an interest in that.
We definitely have to be the ones to put in more effort to keep them close and feel like they are part of the team that we've built. But going back to your original question, some of the gems that I found that are helping and they're kind of in the process is not trying to fix the larger problem of time zones, continents, different cities. It's kind of breaking people up into smaller groups based on interest. So we started the culture clubs at Radiant. So those are for people who want adventure. Those are for people who are interested in movies. There's some for banter. I know there are some football-related ones.
I don't like the football banter one these days. I'm a Man United fan. Really not.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
It's not good stuff. Not good times.
But yeah, so keeping people close and having them mix and integrate in a kind of more social way than just within their account teams has been really beneficial so far. And
Awesome.
it's definitely going to grow and get better throughout the year.
Awesome. I think I'm just, as a compliment, I've really been impressed with how you've just brought us all together and got the vibe right. Because I think when you look at people joining during COVID, especially, we're all at home, we're all social distancing. You get to a restaurant that says, "Oh, you guys are a team of 40? We don't have capacity for that." And navigating all of that has been brilliant, and you're doing amazing at it.
Thank you.
Cool, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Join us next time on the Radiant Lawcast. Cheers.